Besides, we are almost too confident about the story that capital will flow from China to neighboring countries, including Vietnam. But just after one statement from him, the story is completely different. It rotates 180 degrees, then it rotates 180 degrees. And where is the danger in this story? I have to use the word dangerous. I am not talking about the story of the export industries of TRA fish, textiles, galvanized steel, and wood being affected. The story is obvious, but the story here is FDI. It is an extremely important story because FDI exports from FDI enterprises account for 70% of Vietnam's export turnover, 70%. And these FDI enterprises contributed up to 25% to our so-called state budget revenue in the past 2024 years, which means that FDI enterprises play an extremely important role in the Vietnamese economy. It is almost the backbone. What do I really have to share? Our Vietnam is still a country where the added value of our traditional industries is not too much. We are almost just a processing country. High value added products such as chips and electronic components, are high value added products. In fact, businesses in Japan, Korea, and other countries set up factories here so that they can benefit from them. In terms of policy, in terms of tariffs, the story is not like that anymore, And we even have to face the fact that the flow is difficult. Where is the difficulty? Who withdraws that flow of FDI? Industrial park enterprises are first, then the workers. What about the workers? What about the labor, right? And the labor story will drag on. It's a lingering problem. So when it comes to sharing, it's not just about tariffs anymore, but I'm calling it sharing the current situation so everyone can see that the labor story here is not just like we just saw. That is a part of this workforce will be laid off. I think that many of you can feel this story of layoffs, feel it around you, streamlining the state apparatus, and then businesses laying off employees. When there is a workforce that loses its job, the total demand of the economy, when the need to shop somewhere will certainly decrease. We think about the export story, we can't eat it, right? We think about the story of domestic consumption. Yes, but domestic consumption at this time, we are still facing an obstacle. What is that pressure? However, I think that this pressure will not be felt clearly until the second quarter, the third quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter. Because the story of layoffs is new, it's never been clearer. When someone is laid off, for example, at least they have some savings. But if they have spent all their savings, it's almost as if aggregate demand will decrease. Where is the decline here? There are some industry groups, like some stock groups, they are not affected, that is not directly affected, they are only indirectly affected. What are those groups? They are banks, securities, real estate, public investment. But obviously in a session like this, it's going to be flat. It's going to be flat. And there's a bigger risk here that I think we're going to have to be extremely careful about if by next week, April 9th to April 9th US time, we end up not being successful in the negotiations. That's really almost the whole country of Vietnam. I think up to now and until next week, almost holding our breath. Well, just holding our breath. And we all need to pray for Uncle Chin to come and negotiate successfully. Went there and successfully negotiated with the US. Actually, I just made a video today to let the editor edit and upload it later. And up to now, I'm sharing this story so everyone can see my voice shaking. Really, because we understand that when our country is in a pincer situation, we have tried very hard in diplomacy, but we are still in a weaker position compared to China, and compared to the US. We have to understand that our leaders are actually not them. There are no strategies. They have taken steps, had strategies to show their openness before. But it is clear that this tariff is almost a black swan, almost a card that really suffocates Vietnam and forces us to choose sides, forces us to choose the right side. At the end of the year 2024 and continuing until the end of this year, what have we done? The problem here is the deficit, our key point, which is the trade deficit. We have increased the import of many high-value goods from the US, and Boeing and Vietjet signed contracts to buy airplanes. The high-value products are liquefied petroleum gas and aircraft. We already have contracts that we buy. You just need to be a little bit fashionable here. You can see Boeing and Vietjet signed contract. 100 planes here is old. Energy Corporation signed a cooperation agreement worth 4.15 billion USD with the US when buying liquefied gas and this equipment. This is the Prime Minister chairing the meeting today. So what is our story? We have made moves to buy products with high added value, such as liquefied petroleum gas, such as aircraft, so that we can narrow down the trade deficit between Vietnam and the US. But this story is extremely difficult, right? We have shown our willingness to learn, but America still, they are actually unforgiving. They have no mercy here. And this it affects the future of an entire country, an entire economy, everyone. The third story I shared has a huge impact. That's it. Really, at the moment, we just pray that by next week, he will be able to negotiate successfully and at least reduce the tariff. Lower tariffs. Maybe we played a little too many cards too early somewhere. And I'm just evaluating. I'm thinking tonight, and I'm just evaluating what cards do we have that we can play. Maybe somewhere is rare earth. I don't know how you will negotiate next week, how. But really, this is something that is not only related to the stock market or the story of the green and red of stocks, how the stock market is, but it affects the entire economy, even during Trump's entire term. For Trump's entire term, or at least half of it, he was there. And obviously what the worst case scenario is that the negotiations fail, and we end up in a scenario that ends is recession early, but still have pressure 10 there, right? Depression and recession. Depression is a state that is more dangerous than normal. So what does depression mean? Normally, in a state of the economy called recession, somewhere inflation will also decrease. But what is the state of chaos? The economy is declining, growing, recession, but inflation is increasing. This state is the most difficult state to handle and is very close to the current countries. With a context like this, it will have to go through this state. And I think that in the coming time, all professions will feel this so-called difficulty. Back to the story about the situation. Back to the story about inflation, everyone sees that when Mr. Trump imposes such a tax, it is not a tax. This item, for example, is a tax on textile fibers. Only textile fibers. Does it increase the price? Will all products made from textile fibers have to increase in price? It will entail a range of items. Then a series of goods will increase in price and inflation will increase almost to the point of having to use the word galloping. The story of rising inflation is something that we have to face. However, in the context of the economy, do people see that it is growing strongly now? Is there strong growth? Everyone try to feel it for yourself. Unemployment, downsizing, and layoffs, right? Today, I walked along Hughes Street. I recorded a video of many closed stores. When I went, it was 5 p.m., the start of rush hour, and people were getting off work and going shopping, and many closed stores. You commented here that an entire block of Hughes Street was closed. The premises are called the Golden Land of Hanoi. If we return a series of premises, we will understand that in fact, at the present time, it is a time. Not easy. And if that state comes next week we negotiate a lower tariff. It must not be too much. It must not be too good. Then I think the market can still react to more negative levels. That means somewhere will enter the bear market. Then that is something I have to tell the truth. Although I work as a stock consultant, I have to share the truth and the thing. And when we do, all asset classes will downward.